Hi there, everybody. I'm Kraig Kann. Right now, on this edition of Tracks to Success, what's it like to be the person responsible for showing off a city, a community, a region, the leader of a sports commission that has hosted nearly 500 events and generated more than $2 billion in economic impact in a span of 8 years? From MLS All Star games to big bowl games to March Madness, he's brought big things to a city getting bigger and bigger. His background was hockey, a VP of sales and marketing in the NHL, and then the CEO of Orlando's minor league team before taking over the role he's held for a decade as president and CEO of the Greater Orlando Sports Commission. 30 years of success and hardly slowing down. His name is Jason Siegel, and his inspiring story of success starts now.
Welcome to Tracks to Success. This is the podcast that brings you inspiring people and their inspiring stories, how they found their way to the top, and how their path can help you do the same. Here's your host, network broadcaster, C-suite executive, best-selling author, speaker, and entrepreneur, Kraig Kann.
Well, Jason, we actually live in the same town, and I think that's a pretty cool thing. But in doing that, knowing a little bit about you and what you do here in Orlando, I also not only want to go micro, but I want to go macro, and I want to talk about a lot of different things. So glad to have you on Tracks to Success. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kraig. I mean, listen, I would have come to the office, but this works too. I
Yeah,
have this
this is
backdrop in
good.
your office, but I'm happy to be with you.
Well, it's great to have you. President and CEO of the Greater Orlando Sports Commission. In a nutshell, right? What does that mean? Help people understand that role.
Yeah, it's there's been an evolution in our industry for sure. If you look back at the industry, sports tourism, I guess, is the best way to
Mhm.
encapsulate it all. 10, 15, 20 years ago, maybe there were 100 sports commissions in the United States. Now, there's 500 plus sports commissions. You have in the state of Florida, again, back 15 years ago, maybe there were a dozen or so. Now there's 43 sports commissions. My goodness, there's only 63 counties in the state of Florida. So just about every county has a sports commission. For us, our mission is very simple. We drive economic impact through the awarding of sports events into our community, sporting events into our community. Number two, through those events and through our activity, we're looking to market the destination. We support the destination marketing organizations that already exist. Visit Orlando here in Orange County, Experience Kissimmee in Osceola County, Orlando North in Seminole County, and Discover Lake in Lake County. So we're 4 counties wide, big footprint, and of course our good friends here at the city of Orlando. So supporting their activity and promoting our destination. And last but not least, we're sort of the glue within the ecosystem so that we can collaborate as a community amongst all the stakeholders, elected officials, event organizers, arena management, stadium management teams. We
Sure.
just want to be great partners. And we want to make sure that our sort of sports chamber of commerce is coming together to promote and have all ships rise within our community. So it's those 3 things that we're focused on the majority of the time.
So sports is so big in the United States, right? Every city, every county, they're all angling, if you will, for different things. So,
No
so
question.
is landing a big sporting event the micro job that you focus on trying to bring more to the area? And then is reputation and creating a bigger and better reputation for a community and a big city like Orlando is that the bigger picture, the macro?
It is. It's a great question. I think that you hit the nail on the head. It's quantity and quality for sure. So it's also the calendar plays a big role in that because there are absolutely need periods where our leisure travel and our sports travel can help augment, supplement, support our economy in this community. Because obviously we're working on a little bit of a different seasonality timeline than, let's say, our friends to the north or to the
Mhm.
west, because we have peak periods and we have off-peak periods in this community. So there's no question that we want the big events that are going to drive a lot of eyeballs, a lot of attention. But we have to we have to have incredibly successful outcomes. And that means selling a lot of tickets. It could mean great ratings, but it has to be a great experience for our partner who's going to come and execute their event here in the market, because we want repeat business. I want
Mhm.
AAU volleyball here every year with their 6,500 teams and
Yeah.
massive economic impact and the number of hotel stays. But you're right, it's quality, it's seasonality, and it's also an opportunity to create some legacy events for our community as well. Just hosted the marathon trials in 2004.
Hmm.
And while it was an incredible event, a great opportunity to work with the USOPC, U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, it also opened some doors to the IOC so that we could also take a look at opportunities with the International Olympic Committee in the future as we look to build upon all the great success we've had. And we've
Yeah.
done it in soccer, we've done it in a number of other sports as well.
Right. I talked about some of that in the open. We'll get back into maybe the pressures that you deal with in trying to beat out other communities, other cities in just a few minutes. Um, Growing up, though, let's talk about your background, Binghamton. That's a part of your heritage. Give me the story of Jason Siegel growing up. What did you see for yourself, and was CEO in your future as a kid?
Well, I've knocked a couple. I've definitely checked a few boxes. I grew up in Philadelphia. As you know, you're immediately a huge sports fan if you're born within 80 miles of the Vet or some of the old stadiums. I was
Can
uh,
you climb up a light post? Can you do that?
I cannot, but I'm certain
Okay.
I have some friends who can.
Okay. Okay.
But a passionate fan base. I grew up, rooting for Eagles and Phillies and Flyers and Sixers and early childhood memories of Julius Erving and Mike
Sure.
Schmidt and Ron Jaworski, and that list goes on and on. But I was pre-med in college. Within a semester or two, I knew that was a mistake. I had no interest in doing that, and moved into business and economics, and changed my major. And I really I owe a lot to. There was an AHL team, American Hockey League team in Binghamton, where I went to college. A guy named Tom
Hmm.
Mitchell, who owned and operated the team with a couple other guys, Bob Carr and Jim McCoy. I got an internship. I begged the career services department at my school to let me do an internship. It wasn't fashionable back then. I absolutely begged them to let me, get some credit and take some time, and it turned into an absolute passion project. I probably could have gone to Wall Street and done some things like the majority of my friends, but that set me on a course of. I went from let's see, the Binghamton Whalers became the Binghamton Rangers, became time with the great folks at the Garden with the New York Rangers, Barry Watkins, and some great people there.
Wow.
Parlayed that into an opportunity to go join a great team of folks who took started the Dallas Stars. A number of
Hmm.
executives who were with the Detroit Red Wings and the Pittsburgh Penguins came together. Jimmy Lights was the president at the time and hired me to come to Dallas in 1993. So worked there for a period of time. Went on to work for in the LA Kings organization, and before you knew it, after a stint with Rick Adams at the ECHL, Double A hockey, Rick went on to become the attorney for the U.S. Olympic Committee. I found myself with Lou Lamoriello in New Jersey and
Whoa.
had a great run, a couple of Stanley Cups while we were there, and learned a lot from Lou and Chris Madrinsky and a number of really good people in New Jersey. So that turned into a stint as an athletic director back at my alma mater. And when I talk about checking the box, my college roommate and I had an opportunity to buy an ECHL franchise in Orlando. He had family here. I was excited about meeting with Alex Martins and the Orlando Magic to see if they would loan us the name
Mm,
Solar Bears, because we knew that would be an exciting opportunity. And we brought the Solar Bears back out of hibernation. That would have been fall of 2012. And that got me to Orlando. So sold the team a few years later and started working. Mayor Dyer asked me to run this organization. I've been here for nine
wow.
plus years.
That is a journey and a very impressive one. Love the tie into hockey. I had a chance to meet Lou from the Devils at a game with Chris Pronger once upon a time, and he's a legend. And
No
you've
doubt.
got a great tie-in with hockey in all of that. And then we'll get to the Orlando team.
Sure.
You did a lot of different things: sales, marketing, licensing, owning, all that. What'd you learn about yourself, in that climb? I mean, the thing that stands out to me so far that all has hit me is that you begged for the internship. Okay, that's big. A lot of people aren't going to do that today. So, what did you learn about yourself in that climb?
Yeah, I think that you take a little bit of, especially the folks that you're surrounded by. So, folks that I consider great mentors. I realized that in most of those cases, I was underqualified. Somebody was taking a chance on me early on in my career. There's no doubt that it happened right out of the jump, and certainly in Dallas and a couple of the other stops. I was a really young guy in those organizations, but I was surrounded by a lot of other, really capable individuals who are, some of my best friends in the industry and colleagues that have remained for 25, 30 years. Guy like Scott Carmichael back in the day, who was with the LA Kings. His son Chris Carmichael wound up working for us here at the Solar
Hmm.
Bear. So you have these generations of a guy named Dave DeCino was my grad assistant in 1991, and wound up being somebody that I actually started to feed interns to. He would hire my interns 10, 15 years later
Wow.
when he was working at Madison Square Garden. So I think, the two things I learned about myself were I'm going to have to figure things out quickly. But I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to pretend to be something that I wasn't. But I
Hmm.
would also absorb as much as I could from the real quality people. I think I had a sense of understanding and being able to dissect a situation and relationships, so that I made sure that and I got very lucky to be placed in the midst of so many quality people. But how can I absorb all that information? You're going to make mistakes, you're going to learn from your mistakes. But I also was willing to take a lot of risks. I was willing to be, I was already incredibly passionate about the position. It was not a job for me. None of them were jobs. They were careers. It was important for me to continue to elevate, and I had a lot of goals for myself.
Hmm.
I think later on you learn how to balance home and career. But at the same time, I think the one overarching ability and where I've honed my skills the most is truly being able to network, be good to people, stay in touch with folks. You never know when you're going to bounce into a situation, and you're going to be in front of folks that you haven't seen in 30 years, but you can remember what a great connection you had with those, especially in this community, this sports community.
Yeah.
When I went to work at an athletic department and go back to college, a lot of my friends who are in pro sports, minor league sports, network, working for the leagues, they're like, "Oh, that's an interesting, way of approaching things." And now
Right.
you see how big college business is. So that was
Right.
an interesting choice. Then to be able to own my own franchise and work in partnership with my good friend Joe Haleski and put that franchise together. Have to make payroll every week. There's a different type of pressure. And certainly here in a big market, I mean, minor league hockey in Orlando, which is now whatever the 14th largest market in the country, that was a lot of pressure. But now, it's evolved, and now, a lot of folks may not understand or know what sports tourism or what we do as a sports commission. And I think we've been able to use every tool, whether it's LinkedIn or, all of the networking and trade shows,
Right.
conferences that you speak at to, shine a light on the great work being done by my colleagues in sports tourism.
Tracks to Success is proud to have the support of Ahead, true innovators in premium headwear. For more than 25 years, Ahead has been outfitting golfers and supplying headwear for the game's most prestigious events. Head over to aheadshop.com and explore their incredible collection of major championship golf hats. And don't miss their lineup featuring your favorite college teams. If you're looking to dress for success, Ahead is the perfect brand for you. So think ahead and look for it at pro shops and special events across the country. And how about this? For listeners of Tracks to Success, Ahead is offering one of its biggest discounts ever. Visit aheadshop.com and use the code TTS30. That's TTS30 to get not 20% off your purchase, but 30% off. That's right, 30% off with code TTS30. Ahead, the finest in headwear and the official headwear of the Tracks to Success podcast. Available now at aheadusashop.com. We're talking with Jason Siegel. He is the CEO and president of the Greater Orlando Sports Commission. Want to get back to something you talked about just a few minutes ago, and that's finding your way into Orlando, the Orlando Solar Bears, owning it, and the ECHL. I'm a big hockey guy, love hockey, from Chicago Blackhawks. Okay. Couple questions. Minor league sports, it's so big for communities. I think minor league sports is as big for smaller communities as major league sports is for the big cities. Talk to me about the attachment that cities have with sports and specifically minor league.
Yeah, it's definitely palatable when you go into these communities, especially when you have great operators. I think back on the old days where in the American League, the Hershey Bears, the Rochester Americans, these franchises were in business for decades. I mean, they had long-standing success. They're still operating. They're an important part of those communities. Generations of kids and now grow up and Gen 2, G2 and G3, and their grandkids are going to games. Baseball has a long history and so many great communities where what would it be if we didn't have the Durham Bulls or we didn't have some of
Right.
these iconic franchises
Yeah.
throughout and it's very American. It's very much so I think college sports can play that role in a lot of communities where maybe they don't have a minor league hockey or a minor league baseball. Certainly, football, when you're talking about football, when you're talking about basketball, I was just up with my son at a tournament in Raleigh, and the energy around, Durham and, with Duke and NC and NC State and,
Yeah.
an incredible college town. I mean, obviously their allegiances are split, but there's a passion, there's a morale that comes with winning in those communities. And, while so many of the folks that are in the communities, the residents of those communities probably have a major league team they root for, they're, sitting front row or, sitting
Sure.
there, whether it's summer, winter, spring or fall, they're there with their clubs, rooting them on year after year after year.
So before I got to Orlando, I was in Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Michigan, and
Oh, well,
that's years ago in the
Van Andel
90s.
Arena, right?
There you go. And the Kalamazoo Wings, big hockey
Oh,
deal
yeah, yeah.
there.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah, in
West
Kalamazoo.
Michigan Whitecaps, big minor
Mhm.
league baseball team there.
Yep.
Here's my question. All right. Is it hard to accept? And you mentioned Orlando being a top 15 market now, but yet still ECHL, right? Not even the next level up. Is
Sure.
it hard to accept we're a minor league sports town, not a major league sports town? Or is that something you don't settle on and aim bigger? You just embrace?
I think, it depends on, certainly the market. I mean, there have been markets that have struggled and failed year on, year out. You see a lot of logos, a lot of teams come through the markets. I think for us, I'll look at it both ways. When we were in it and I was operating a minor league team, or I was at a college, or I was in a small market like Binghamton back in the early days, we embraced all of it. We
Mm.
embraced, back in the day when it was Hartford or New York, that was the parent club, Sergei Zubov and Alex Kovalev and Mike Richter got sent down. And, you can
Boy, you are a big hockey guy.
listen, you can connect. I mean, I was in the middle of it all. Uh,
Yeah.
but you embrace it and you learn to, and by the way, the roots of it really are impactful when you get to the pro level. So working in the minor leagues, when I'd pinch myself because for 7 years I sat next to Mike Emmerich and I sat next to Chico Resch and Sam and JD in New York and all these incredible icons of the sport on the broadcasting side. The fact that I could go down memory lane and connect with them because I had paid my dues and worked my way up really made a difference. And it was impactful, and it absolutely helped my career. Now, look at it the other way. Owning a franchise that's a minor league team in a big market, it is what you make it. We presented ourselves here in Orlando. We were playing in the Kia Center. We were paying a big number for rent. We were working with the Magic's game management and game presentation teams. We knew we had to put on. I love what the folks are doing at the Savannah Bananas. They don't think of it as anything but incredible entertainment, a great experience, fan experience, and we felt the same way. It's like, listen, regardless of who we're playing and whether we're gonna win a Stanley Cup or a Kelly Cup, we have to perform and we have to deliver an unequaled product for our customers. So I never really thought about it much because it was always about maximizing every opportunity.
But the fans, I guarantee you, do wish for bigger, probably. And maybe there's a little pressure with that. Jesse Cole was actually on this podcast. He was a fabulous guest. Um, so it's interesting because it seems like Orlando, we'll talk Orlando for a second, is
Sure,
always in the mix for the next expansion team of some
sure,
sort,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
Is that a good thing? Because oftentimes, there's a lot of other cities as well, and Orlando won't end up getting the prize.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we have a lot of those conversations, right? We've had a number of XFL, UFL, a lot of USFL. We've had a lot of conversations about
Sure.
spring football in this community. We've certainly had more recently a lot of conversations around baseball. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and our community is a very young community. So if you think back on, Walt Disney, I think is having their 52nd or 53rd anniversary. They just recently celebrated 50 years. That's two generations. So
Hmm.
compared to Cubs and Red Sox and organizations, the Montreal Canadiens, and that have been around for 3, 4 generations, it's a young community. We're certainly on the rise and evolving as a community, and we're emerging, I guess is a better word. We are where we are, and ultimately, I would tell you that the success of the Magic, when they're in the playoffs, this town is electric. I mean, there's no
Hmm.
doubt about it. There's no replicating that
Hmm.
experience. We're now, experiencing that with the Orlando City Soccer Club. Orlando
Hmm.
Pride won a championship. No doubt. Listen, we're going to host a Panthers Lightning game here in the next couple of weeks. So for our diehard hockey fans and all the transplants that live here that came from the Midwest and the Northeast, I'm sure they would love to have a hometown NHL team. That's not the reality. So I think for us, it's about focusing on UCF, Orlando City, the Orlando Magic, and if the opportunity presents itself in the future, depending on geography and the makeup of these leagues. I mean, whoever thought that every league would grow to 32 teams, if you look
Right.
20, 25 years ago.
Sure.
So we'll see how it evolves. But I think we've made up for that by hosting, multiple bowl games and big events. And we've become essentially the capital of youth sports in the United States. So we've been able to take our success and parlay that into a lot of great opportunities for the residents of our community.
In addition to hosting this podcast, Kraig leads the Kann Advisory Group, focused on elevating communication for companies and individuals. Company consulting, team and individual workshops, mind-altering virtual programs. To learn more and to find out why the Elevate workshop has been labeled the most powerful experience in leadership communication, visit cannadvisory.com. And when you do connect, mention the Tracks to Success podcast to receive your special discount. Now, back to the interview.
Jason Siegel is our guest. He runs the Greater Orlando Sports Commission. We just talked about youth sports in Central Florida, and all my kids grew up here and in this city. And my son with the travel baseball, my daughter with the travel volleyball, like every single thing. We've touched it all. So there's a lot. Talk about economic impact. My wallet is still suffering from all of that sort of stuff. I'm going to ask you a real selfish question.
Sure.
And I think people outside of Orlando would question this. You mentioned a little bit ago Disney, and I'm going to move on to something else here in a second, but got to ask this. Disney, as big as it is, okay, and the tie to ESPN and college football, and you mentioned the bowl games in Orlando, and I know that there's work being done about another expansion or modification of the stadium here for what we call the Citrus Bowl. But why wouldn't Disney pony up all the big cash, build a massive stadium, and have the national championship in Orlando as one of the rotating venues with all the hotels? And it just seems like a no-brainer. How come that hasn't happened?
Well, here's the great answer to that question. I don't get paid to, make those decisions. I get to promote exactly what's here available to
what
us.
you do have.
And you better believe that, just short of knowing which lanes I stay in, not probably the most thoughtful thing to do by speaking on their behalf. But I will tell you this, Jeff Volley, Farron Kelly, Adam Ball, now the folks that are at ESPN Wide World of Sports and that run Disney, and certainly all the way up to Mr. Iger, their investment in this community is second to none. So ultimately, I mean, they're clearly the perfect person that, a group of people to answer the question. But at the same time, I mean, you can't replace the amount of impact that they've made on our community across the board. I think it's 70,000 plus employees now that are employed here in Orlando at Disney. Between them, and it's interesting. I'll tell you a great story, Kraig. We were meeting with FIFA, and we were bidding on Men's World Cup in 2026. And there was a lot of conversation. We sat around a square table, and of course, the leadership team from FIFA, and we had all of our local stakeholders and leadership in the room. And they asked, about the size of, could we handle the size and scope of, supporting a World Cup activity here in Orlando. And of course, we had hosted in 1994, but the world has changed since 94. We have $5 billion stadiums. That wasn't, happening 30 years ago. So I just loved, a portion of that meeting. We had our partners, reps from Disney and Universal sitting next to each other. And one of the great lines and comments that came from that meeting was, make no mistake, if you have an understanding of the number of visitors to our theme parks every day of the year, 365 days of the year, we are hosting a Super Bowl in Orlando every single day. So I think that, the quality and certainly of the number of folks that are dedicated to tourism, hospitality, making sure that our visitors have an incredible experience while they're here, unforgettable, magical experiences. At the end of the day, we'll continue to focus on, the assets available to us, knowing that, hey, the world is evolving, whether it's domestically, internationally. We've got our eyes on a lot of different opportunities as we progress forward.
The corporate ladder, you've climbed it, but you've been within sports. Did you like, or do you like the corporate ladder and the climb? Is that fun for you?
Yeah, I think that I've always had a good understanding, and hopefully, the folks that I work with feel like we go about our business in a thoughtful manner. In this particular job, I get to be incredibly collaborative. So
Mhm.
communication's important, making sure that our elected officials have information. They're always prepared, not a lot of surprises. I think that ultimately, each job has a different set of skill sets necessary. And I've had to, as I've changed positions over the years, I've had to adapt. I think the role I'm in now is much more political than it's ever been in any of my other roles. In the past, you'd look down the hall and Lou Lamoriello was handling, those things. I never had to worry about some of the challenges that I would worry about in this seat.
Mhm.
So I think that yes, I always embraced the climb. I always felt like it was never happening fast enough. I was always, excited for whatever that next potential opportunity was. I think at times, you have to be careful because you would jump in and out of opportunities too quickly, and maybe people
Yes.
thought that you were a flight risk from the day they hired you. So I think having the 7 years that I did in New Jersey with Lou, and we were part of the Nets organization. Mr. Steinbrenner formed that organization that was Yankees Nets. The Devils were under the umbrella. They started the Yes Network, and being around
Mhm.
that for the years that I was there gave me an appreciation for ultimately what roles would be available to me. And at the same time, I really never took my eyes off of the opportunity to own my own franchise. But I liked the climb. I love being an entrepreneur. There was an energy and a almost insanity associated with, they say owning a sports team. That's probably that and skydiving are probably the two craziest things you can do, or being restaurant owners, or but still, nonetheless, I think here in this position, a little different. Not necessarily corporate ladder. We want to be good community members. We want to be collaborators. We want to make sure that I've got a footprint that's 4 counties wide. At the same time,
Yep.
we collaborate with our industry partners. So here domestically, we always are thinking about, oh, by the way, maybe the US is competing against another country to host a FIFA World Cup, or to host a rugby World Cup, or host the volleyball World Finals, or to host an Olympics. So I think we
Mhm.
also have to be collaborative across all of the cities in the United States to make sure that we're taking care of the US as we compete
Interesting.
globally.
So you just brought up entrepreneur. I'm glad you did because that was where I was going to go next anyway. So nice tie in here. You have to, I would believe, have a bit of an entrepreneurial mindset in what you do day to day. Almost the no fear factor, pushing ideas across the table, gathering other people's support, all that sort of stuff. I'm certain that you adopt that day to day. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It starts with as an Eagles fan, it kills me to say, that I love, Mike Tomlin is just this unbelievable, you watch him on the pivot, or you watch him interviewed, or you listen to his sound bites. But I just love, it starts with Tomlin talks about, if I have to show that I'm all in, so
Mm,
I have to bring energy, I have to bring passion, I have to bring a definition of what the mission is going to be, and I really have to care about the people around me. I have to really involve myself in their lives to make sure that certainly it's a two-way street. For a coach to have success, the players have to have success. So it starts there for me, is make sure that I'm incredibly passionate about what I'm doing. Make that very obvious. I think I do that through social network channels. Uh,
mhm,
I think we do it with the relationships that we build here in market. But ultimately, yes, every day, new challenges you've got to be up for. When I was younger, I used to get in the car, whether I had a short drive or I had to drive an hour to the Meadowlands, and I'd be like, man, I hope today is going to be a good day. And you'd measure it in your 20s by, like, is it going to be a good day? Is it going to be a tough day? And I think you get to a place later on in your career where you're like, whatever comes my way, we'll have to handle it. We'll have to figure it
Yeah.
out. We'll have to problem solve. We'll have to, get to some outcomes that By the way, they may not happen quickly either. It might take
Mm-hmm.
years for things to evolve, especially in our business now. We're bidding on business in 2035,
I
so we're looking
know.
10 years out. I did an interview with Reuters in Paris. We were there for the Olympics, and they asked, would you consider, and I had just got off the phone with the governor's office here in Florida, would you consider bidding on the 2040 Olympics? And in my mind, no brainer. That's an absolute for the state of Florida, our economy here in Florida, our relationships with Tampa and Miami. You don't know who the governor is going to be in 2040. I don't know, how far, into my career,
Sure.
that I'll be, whatever I'll be, however old I'll be at the time. But I think you have to, also be thinking about a strategy for what the future might hold.
Love that.
That has to be the subcontext of what we're doing in addition to the micro day in and day out. And oh, by the way, my team has, 3 championships going on at the same time. Those all have to be successful, but at the same time, keeping an eye on the future.
Looking for a guest speaker for your next event or annual conference? Kraig's message is inspiring and empowering. Visit kraigcanspeak.com to learn more about his topics and find out about his green shoe experience. It's a day your people will talk about long after he's gone. So visit kraigcanspeak.com and mention the Tracks to Success podcast to receive your special discount. Now, back to the show.
Fascinating conversation with Jason Siegel, who leads, I would say, more than just sports in Orlando. One of the biggest political figures as well. And I think so many people nationwide can learn from your journey. Before we go, I want to focus on that. I want to personalize this a little bit and help out our listeners and our viewers. This podcast is called Tracks to Success. All right. Inspiring people, inspiring stories. I talk about this on every episode that the career path is not a straight line. For most people, there are pivots, there are failures, there are successes, turns, all that stuff, things you don't see coming. What's the thing you've learned most about yourself in your journey?
It's actually personally my experience with the industry on a personal level. And I think that I've heard some people talk about, work-life balance. Um, it's not work-life balance. I think the thing that I've learned is that you're going to have to incorporate one into the other. So
Mm,
how do I make sure that I'm a great husband, a great father, that I'm a great friend? And I think that I've always had a very focused path career wise. And by the way, if you'd have told me that I'd be Philadelphia, New York, Dallas, L.A., Phoenix, back over to Jersey, down to Florida, I would have been like, hey, you know what? If you look at all my friends in the industry, most everybody's kind of done the same thing.
sure.
You find your way, and you never know what that next opportunity might look like. And listen, you never know who may call on you, who you've either worked for in the past. I worked for a guy named Jeff Cogan in Dallas, and Jeff is a terrific guy. He was a Barnum and Bailey guy. He went up to Detroit to work for the Red Wings. And when I got to Dallas, I was only in the industry like 6, 7 years. And on my first day on the job, I went and took him a letter that I'm confident he didn't sign the letter. He probably had an administrator, an assistant sign it for him, but he had rejected my resume like 7 years earlier. I was like, and it's funny because I took it in the office and I'm like, you see, persistence pays off. Here we are 6, 7 years later, and you wound up hiring me. But I think the thing that I've learned most about myself is how to find balance in my personal life to make sure that I'm not missing those great opportunities and memories and the relationships
Yeah.
outside of the work. Because in our industry, Kraig, you know it, right? I mean, you've got game nights, you've got crazy hours.
Yeah.
A lot of people come to you. They're drawn to what you're doing, whether it's, all of my friends coming to Game 7 in 2003, we were in between the second and third period, Kraig. We were up 2-0. We have Marty Brodeur in net. We've got this incredible franchise, that's kind of, we're always playing in the Stanley Cup year in and year out. We were winning 2-0. I made the mistake going out into the concourse to see them. And they're all like, "You're getting a ring, you're finally getting a ring, screaming and yelling, we're going to win the championship." It was the worst 5 minutes of my life. I was so, anxious, and I had to worry about the rest of the night and all the things that had to go on with it. But that's where you would see your friends. That's where you
Yeah.
would see your family. My
Sure.
daughter's in her mid-20s. She grew up in arenas and stadiums. And for me, it was about, finding, a little bit later in life, a way to balance that, trust, the people that you have around you to do a great job, and empower them to do so. And at the same time, give them the tools to do a great job.
Well, you talking about the Devils brings me to my good buddy Mike Miller, who was in Kalamazoo and voice of
Love
the
Mike.
Devils on radio for a
Oh,
number
yeah.
of years. So, um, okay, failure is a part of your job. You don't always land the big ticket sporting event. You don't always get what a community might really want. You might not get the Olympics in 2040, right? Um, they don't come to the area, they move on to the next, and you move on to the next, probably. What would you tell
Question.
people, tell others about playing the game of disappointment in career?
I've found that it's better to do it as a group, and to not
Hmm,
insulate yourself from the experience. A lot of people, I'll give you two examples. I
okay.
have an incredible team here at the Sports Commission. Most of the folks that are here, Brent Nelson's with us 30 years, Jen Lastik's with us 18 years, Kyle Sturley's with us 13 years. So these folks have been here more than 10 years with us. And when I first got here, I remember telling them we're going to do a press conference on the day that the NCAA is going to announce the number of championships and what cities they're going to go to. And they were like, "Man, you're really putting yourself out there," because we invited a representative from each of the counties, both mayors, and we had a press conference, and we were going to do this in real time, not knowing whether we were
Hmm,
going to get any championships or we were going to get a lot of championships. And I think for me, it was, we need to win and lose as a community. Let's invite everybody. Let them feel the disappointment if it doesn't go our way, because then
hmm,
they'll be competitive about positioning ourselves as a community the next time it comes around. And we took that, we were really lucky that year. We have a great history with the NCAA. This last cycle, no other cities hosted more championships than we did. But that particular year, we were awarded a number of great opportunities in a number of our different counties. So it worked out really well. We did the same thing. I had a concession speech and I had a victory speech ready the day that FIFA announced which cities were going to host Men's
uh,
World Cup. And we were not selected. But what happened in that process, in that journey, in that 5-year exercise, because it was interrupted by COVID, was we brought 500 leaders in this community together to help us work on that project.
yeah.
So when we had the 300 people in the room the night that Gianni Infantino and Victor Montagliani pulled the envelopes and announced the cities, we were able to be there together to experience, unfortunately, the emotions of not being selected. Now,
Hmm,
did that lead to our local community investing another $400 million in Camping World Stadium, another 200 million plus in Kia Center, millions of dollars into our university stadium, 500 more million dollars into our convention center, many more $1 million into incentives that we would be able to use to win future bids? It might have. I'm sure it played a
hmm,
role, but the fact that everybody was there to experience that by our side
yeah.
probably got everybody's competitive juices up, and it probably positioned ourselves for the long game, which is, okay, great. We took a loss there, but we came back and won some Club World Cup matches,
Love it.
and we
Love it.
will win more often than we'll lose, knowing that, hey, by the way, it's not always going to go in our favor, especially in
Yeah.
our industry. We're lucky if, oh my goodness, if we can bat 250, 300, we're killing it.
Yeah, you are. Last thing, you talked about speeches in my keynotes and the workshops that I do with sales teams and communications teams and leaders. I talk a lot about being sticky, okay? Being memorable, being remembered for something, having a differentiator that sets you apart. The last question I have is a two-part question. In your job, I'm sure you're trying to figure out what is the sticky factor of Central Florida and Orlando, and you got to present that.
Yes.
The other part of that is, what do you tell people as individuals about the value of figuring out their sticky factor?
It's such a great question, and I didn't have the answer, to be honest. I didn't have the answer until I got to New Jersey and worked for Lou. And I remember every single person, Lou would interview every hire made in that organization. He didn't just leave it up to his senior leadership team. And every time I would take, it didn't matter if you were coming in to be an intern or you were coming in to be a mid-manager, mid-level manager. Lou would go through a series of the same points that he would want to make when he was having that time with that individual. And for me, that resonated. That
Huh.
meant that I had to be super consistent about what I thought our competitive advantage was. I had to be really consistent about what the expectations were. I had to be really consistent about what the deliverables were. If you come and work with us, if you come host your event here in Orlando, and we had to be able to storytell. We had to give examples. You had to make sure that you were ready, and you had to be ready to pivot because you'd get all kinds of questions. You'd have to be able to handle, an and one situation. Not everybody's coming at you from a friendly place. There's going to be criticism. There's going to be critique.
Mhm.
There's going to be opposition. There's going to be folks that are going to say, we never thought of Orlando. Tell us why you want us to come to your community. And I think until I got to see Lou in action in the middle of my career and the consistency in which he approached that exact question that you just asked, that really gave me the opportunity to think about how I would maybe take some of the things that he was saying, make them more a little bit organic to how I would approach things, but taking from those experiences and moving forward made a big deal in how we go about our business.
Well, you've been a fabulous guest. I'm a big sports guy. You and I spent just a little bit of time together speaking of spring football when the Orlando Apollos were a thing
Yeah.
in
Oh
this
yeah.
city. I've seen you at other
And
sporting
was that
events.
that was a championship year, right? So yeah,
You're darn
that's
right
right.
it was.
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing too is that I've got season tickets to the Magic, so let's find our way to spend a little bit of time together. I can't
Love that.
thank you enough for the time we just spent.
I'll see you here at Kia Center.
Friends, success isn't just about the look of your resume. It's about the way you look, and dressing for success in the workplace is important. The way you look out of the workplace is part of your brand as well. Ahead, our official headwear partner, is all about helping you show off your best self. A hat says a lot about you, and Ahead doesn't just follow trends, they set them. Available at pro shops, resorts, and big sporting events around the country, and also online. By listening to this podcast, you get a chance to save big. Visit aheadusashop.com, use the code TTS30, and receive 30% off your order. That's aheadusashop.com, using the code TTS30. 30% off just for you. Ahead, the finest brand in headwear and the official headwear of Tracks to Success. Well, it's time for Getting Ahead. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Jason. Here's what I want to talk about. Jason had a run at his alma mater, Binghamton University, where he was Senior Associate Athletic Director. We talked about that. Then he had a long run in minor league sports, specifically hockey. Now, years ago, I was delivering a talk to a large group of leaders in minor league sports looking to expand their brand. My message was pretty simple. Even though you're in the minor leagues, I want you to think differently. I want you to think big league, and I want you to be big league in everything you do and how you promote. Oftentimes, as we climb up the ladder in various jobs or roles in our career, we have roles that aren't quite as big as we would hope to have at that time, or we work in places that aren't quite the biggest in their given industry. And I say this, I say that's okay. The mindset for success is to make everything bigger, create more awareness for the place that you're actually at. Be where you are and be really good where you are. Do relevant things that create more relevancy for you and the place that you work. So try it. Change your mindset. That's how Jason works and how his tracks to success came to be. I guarantee if you adopt that same mindset, your tracks to success will come a whole lot easier. I'm Kraig Kann. Until next time, I hope you enjoyed this time on Tracks to Success.
Don't forget to subscribe to the show for more great interviews and Kraig's thoughts on reaching your highest personal and professional summit. Find it wherever you get your podcasts and on the Kraig Kann YouTube channel and kraigcanspeak.com.